Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. That might have to change. I've already changed part of it and divided the sugar that I have in it by half. So we're now having half a teaspoon of sugar. Bearing in mind that is pure unrefined Demerara sugar. Probably about the best sugar you can get and the least harmful. Still sugar though. You could say that about honey, how pure, and it's still sugar. Anyway, first of all, a big thank you for the massive amount of comments and words of support and possible advice against my video. It's well appreciated. Took me flipping ages to go through them all and put some answers on, but the bottom line really is thanks for the advice and, you know, things that have happened to yourselves and what you did about it. It's all appreciated, but at the end of the day, it's Thursday today. Tomorrow at lunchtime I will go and have my ECG and talk to a doctor and find out the advice that I need. I already have a plan that can be tailored very easily depending on the results tomorrow. The food plan is already in place, and irrespective of the doctor's advice, that will be implemented. I know what I'm doing with that. I already have good advice on that. But, you know, a lot of people said drink water. Why? What's the point? There's nothing in it. It does nothing for you. Oh yeah, your body's dehydrated. No, it's not. That is an advertising campaign for people selling bottled water. Yes. The end of the day, it's a false truth. Just have a look at people, have a look at rangers in the safari parks. This is in Africa, it's a bit warmer in Africa. They go off for the day in their Land Rover to do their job, patrolling and looking after our wildlife and all stuff like that, with a small canteen of water. Do they dehydrate and die? No. That's because you don't need it. I go off, well I used to, I haven't done it recently, I used to go off for what I called my forest walks, looking for butterflies and native orchids and all that sort of stuff. Just an enjoyable walk in the forest, usually starting about 8 in the morning, having had breakfast and a couple of cups of coffee, and I used to go off and sometimes I'd be gone 6 or 7 hours. No drink, no food, and fine. So it's a misconception. Some people, everybody's different, obviously need more hydration than not. That is my hydration, my cups of coffee in the morning. And now that we're cutting the wine out almost completely, I won't have anything else to drink for the rest of the day. That means I get a good night's sleep because I don't have to get up in the middle of the night. Sleep's important. Anyway, so we won't be guzzling gallons of water all day long. I probably get through 1.5 litres of water in my coffees, because I have quite a few. And again, that's not full-blown coffee, that's half decaf. Oh, decaf's got loads of chemicals. No, it hasn't. I did the research. The decaf that I use is produced using CO2 and high pressure water. There are no chemicals added. It's good decaf, and it's half and half. So that's that sorted out. Now, the rest of today. I did nothing yesterday. I was not in a good place yesterday. If I'd come away from my health check with, you are overweight, your BMI has gone over the line, you need to drop your weight. Get on with it. Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. And you could probably do with doing a bit of exercise. Okay. Your blood pressure's too high. Yeah? Well, if you lose your weight, your blood pressure will probably come down, and with some dietary changes we can aid and abet that. But the good news was your cholesterol is nice and low. No worries on that front. I'd have come out of that, you know, okay, and I'd have been all right. But then when they say you've got an erratic pulse, the worry sets in. And it's difficult not to, because it's an unknown. I will find out all about that tomorrow. And then after tomorrow, I will either worry or I won't. It'll be an on-off switch. But we'll wait for tomorrow. But so yesterday I did nothing. Today we've started on a better note. Again, good night's sleep. So I've started on the little feet for the Cymbidium staging, which is sat outside there waiting. It's all waiting to have its little feet put on. Yes, so we will, that's coat number 1. That will be dry enough to put a second coat on today, which will then be dry enough to actually fit and put the wheels on tomorrow. But tomorrow is, you know, off to the health centre again, so putting the feet on might not get done tomorrow. It's probably a half-hour job putting those 4 feet on. I mean, initially the feet have got to be screwed to the staging, because once the feet get screwed to the little feet, I can't get at the holes to screw it onto the staging. So they've got to be fitted onto the staging first, and then the feet screwed onto the wheels screwed onto the little feet. It's probably a half-hour job. It's not a big deal, but whether I'll be in the mood to do that tomorrow morning or not, I don't know. I might get it done in the afternoon. If not, I'll get it done at the weekend. But it chucked it down with rain yesterday. We had a little bit of sadness out in the garden. My 3 nice huge foxgloves in the corner there is down to 2, because the heavy rain actually bent one of them over and snapped the stem. So I've had to cut it off, unfortunately. And one of the little side shoots went with it, so it took out one that hadn't even come into flower yet. The other thing I did this morning, because that is such soft wood, if you look at the very base of the wisteria, you can see a stump. Well, that's what got cut off this morning with the secateurs. It's very thin wood. The reason was the leaves were coming out on that branch and getting tangled up with my fern, and my fern's far more important than a branch on the wisteria. So we've got a little bit of clearing up to do out there, but nothing much. And as far as the rest of this video is concerned, I'm going to have a closer look at my Paphiopedilums and a chat about the sort of things you might want to ask yourself before you get one, based on what it's called, yeah? And if it's a hybrid, based on what went into it. So we'll have a chat about my Paphiopedilums. And I've said that up front, because if you haven't got any and you're not interested, then obviously, you know, you can watch something else perhaps. But it could be of interest even if you haven't got any. It might spark your interest, who knows. But we need to get our coffee drunk and sort myself out ready for doing videos again. Getting in the mood, as they say. So I'll be back. Okay, what I've done is I've got all the Paphiopedilums out on the table. We'll look and chat about each one in turn, and then I'll move them out the way. Strictly speaking, I only have one that I have an issue with, even though some of them have masked issues. We'll go into that. So yeah, I mean, generally speaking, Paphiopedilums are known to be pretty slow at most things. So they're relatively slow growing, relatively slow to produce a decent root system in some cases. They're also relatively slow to bloom, in as much as when you see, whoopee, I have a spike, don't hold your breath, because they can take a long time to push that spike on, produce a bud, for the bud to swell and eventually open. But the good news is a fair few of them last quite a long time. And then on top of that, you've got the multiflorals, where per spike you will get multiple blooms. In amongst them are some sequential ones, where you get one bloom after another for a while, until the spike's finished. Bloom sizes vary from quite small, miniatures, I've just had one finished flowering, and up to quite large. And what I call the moustache look appears in quite a few cases. There's a couple of species that are into hybrids that actually generate the big long twisty moustache bits that can be quite attractive, I must admit. Now, when I used to try these at the other place, and I did try many, I tended to buy them in bloom a couple of sellers in the EU, obviously well before Brexit, that provided quite nice plants in bloom, and then they just progressively went downhill. They'd finished blooming, possibly produce a new growth that would half mature, and then the plant would decline, and I never kept them going very long, and I never produced a good plant. They just never lasted. So in the end I gave up. The last few I had, before they actually went downhill too bad, went to somebody else to have a go. Can't remember where or who or what. If you are watching, an update might be nice if you had any of my Paphiopedilums. Still got them? Anyway, so I decided here, because of the lack of the fierce heat that I used to get at times around the other place, to give them another go, and they seem to be doing quite well now, even though some of them are classed as relatively warm, you know, up the higher end of intermediate, so my winter temperatures are not perfect for them by any means. But apart from one, they all seem to be doing quite well. Two important things: if you get a hybrid, try and find out what went into it and get back to the source, basically the original species that went into it, and then do some work on those species and find out where and how they grow. I'm not really interested in the country, I'm on about the environment they grow in, because quite a few Paphiopedilums are effectively terrestrials or semi-terrestrials. They grow on forest floors. So read into that what you will, but as far as I'm concerned, leaf decay and everything on a forest floor tends to generate a more acidic base. But a lot of them grow on limestone outcrops, and some of them actually grow on the ground on those limestone outcrops in humus, in debris. Well, does that mean they're in an acidic base or an alkaline base because of the limestone? Perhaps they're somewhere in between, and some of them are actually lithophytes and they grow on in amongst the rocks, often on limestone. Those would be an alkaline base, and that base is quite important for the plant to do well, because if you've got one in quite an acidic media, and it's one that grows in an alkaline base as a species, it's not going to prosper, you know. So that's the work that I would recommend doing, preferably before you get it. And the ones that are more neutral and more acidic based, quite honestly, are much easier to look after, because most orchid media, organic, which is all I ever use, heads towards acidity. Even if it's not originally, it will head that way as it starts to break down. So those plants would be more suited to my media. If you grow in inorganic, then in theory you've got a neutral base. Therefore the base is dictated by what you water into it. Yeah. Therefore it's adjustable, down to you. Right, we'll swing the camera around and we'll get the awkward one out the way, and then I'll decide on what I'm going to do with that there and then, quite honestly, because I've had enough of it not looking so good. Oops, just flipped the screen, it went upside down. I think something like that could do with being farther away, really. Let's make sure this thing's zoomed right out. Right, there we go. Right, so that's my little group, and in amongst them this is the problem. And if you look at I would say a normal Paphiopedilum and this one, what's wrong with it is blatantly obvious. The leaves are incredibly pale, and I don't know why. They were like this when I've got it. I'm not sure they've got any worse. New growths are coming. New leaves are coming on existing growths that look a more normal colour. There are some new growths coming. Maybe it will sort itself out. But what I'd like to do with it is give it a good dose of magnesium, which helps with the photosynthesis and helps in the production of chlorophyll, which is green. And that might brighten the leaves up. But I think something happened to this before I got it that actually made this plant like this. And I'm not going to be able to recover the existing yellow leaves and get them back to green. But we shall see. It's a trifle worrying when you look at a leaf like that and you can almost see the cell structure on the leaf. It's got a very poor root system, virtually non-existent, so it could do with better roots. So the problem I've got is it doesn't matter too much what nutrients I try and put in the pot. It doesn't get hold of them very well because it hasn't got a good root system. I think the initial solution to this is far more shade than it's in now. So when I put this back, it's going to go one shelf down towards the back of that shelf. That will be with my Restrepias, so lower light, and let's see if that helps with it greening up. But we do have little new growths coming in places. There are several, another one buried in there. So there are some new growths coming, and so far the new growths look a better colour, so far. So I don't think the leaves I've got are recoverable. I'm stuck with them. And because they are so pale, they're obviously not photosynthesizing properly, if at all in some cases, which means this plant's not feeding itself properly. So a troublesome one. That is Paphiopedilum helvetia. I believe that's a primary hybrid, not quite sure. I'm certainly not going to go and look it up at this point in time. So that will go back on the Restrepia shelf, so we'll keep that one separate. Right, now this one's just gone out of bloom. This is a miniature. The bloom was incredibly attractive. I'll do pop-ups of the blooms because obviously all of these were either bought in bloom, and in some cases I've produced blooms subsequently. So I've got a picture of blooms for all of them. Now this is Paphiopedilum appletonianum, and it's a very young division. I'm not sure it's a seedling. And the other thing I'm not sure of with this one is, is this a new growth, or was that an existing growth on the division and this is the new growth because it bloomed? But at the base of the plant I don't see any signs of another new growth yet. Now this has only just gone out of bloom within the last week. It does have some roots, but not very good roots. I think this is one of those that the next new growth will produce the better root system. It has got some in there, but they're not very good. But the leaves are a nice pattern. I love the bloom. The bloom was very attractive. It's okay. It's not spectacular because lack of roots, but it's okay. That's that one. Then we'll have a look at this one. This one doesn't have a tag because the name is so long. Its full name won't fit on one of my tags. And I know which one it is because it's the one without a tag. Now this as a plant isn't bad. It doesn't have a good root system, but it seems to be doing okay without it. The few roots it's got seem to be keeping it going. And this effectively is a new growth. And it's got another new growth coming in there. So this is in proper growth mode. When I got it, it had a bloom on this growth. So that's now finished, well, long since finished. So hopefully between these two growths we will get a better root system. This is one of those that has a slow growth rate as far as what's in the pot is concerned. But the growths look okay, they're coming on. They've got some growing to do. Obviously you can see the the size of the potential leaves. Some physical damage on these leaves. That was there when I got it. So that's that one. It's okay. It's not doing splendidly. It's okay. Right, what should we look at next? Another green one. Now this is Villosum variety Ambuenense. And this, again, it's bloomed. Both growths on here, both of the older growths have bloomed. One of those were my blooms. And what this one's doing is pushing up a nice new growth. Yeah? This one has roots, and it has growing roots. So we've got active growing roots in the pot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 growing tips in that area. So we have growing roots, 6 if we include that one. So there's active roots, and new roots will be produced by the new growth. This is one that produces roots readily. So in theory it would be an easier one to grow and keep growing. So yeah, this one's doing okay. The leaves are a reasonable colour, and it's doing okay. Hoping to see a bloom or whatever on one new growth that's pushing on. But don't hold your breath though, it'll be a while. So that one's doing fine with roots. An essential part of orchid life. We need roots. Right, so then we'll have a look at this big one. This is the most recent one to get repotted. This has got quite a few new growths coming here. A lot of the growths on here have bloomed. This is effectively a new growth in the middle of the plant here. So we've got another one pushing up here, another one here. So there's quite a few new growths coming on here. Leaves are a reasonable colour. Some leaves have been chopped. They obviously had brown tips, not me. So that was done before I got it. But apart from that, it looks like it blooms readily because it's growing into a better sized plant, and the older parts of the plant all have stumps where they've bloomed. So there's very little of this plant that hasn't bloomed or isn't a new growth. It's not got a brilliant root system. It's got some when we repotted it. They looked a bit dry and gnarly, but they were viable. There were quite a lot of sad roots that had to come off, but there were also some that were okay, even though they didn't have growing tips. But with the amount of new growth coming on here, especially this larger one here, we should get some new roots on that relatively soon. And that one is Lianum, sorry, and that's a primary cross, so X on the front. It's doing fine. I'm happy with that one. Even though I can't see a pot full of roots, I know it's got some. And it went in slightly larger a pot than I would normally do. You know, I like to keep these quite tight. But with the number of new growths coming, I expect this pot to be full of roots. In the future. How long it'll take, I don't know. So that one's doing okay. Not spectacular, but it's doing good. And should improve over time because of the number of new growths and the potential for a new root system. And then this hybrid blackjack I've had a while now. This has bloomed a couple of times, and it's doing fine. It's got the best root system I've ever had on a Paphiopedilum, quite honestly. It's a good root system. Plenty of them. The root system at the moment is not in active growth, yeah, because this root system here is the previous one that was produced by older growths. Yeah, we've now got newer growths that should produce new roots. Got one pushing up here. This is a new growth. One here. So we've got some new growths. There's one in the middle of the plant there as well. So we've got new growths coming. Those new growths will produce some more roots. At which point this pot will be full. At which point should I be thinking about moving this on into a slightly bigger pot in preparation for those roots? Not at the moment, because I don't see those new roots starting yet. So I'm happy with the root system I've got. Very dark leaves, nice patterning on the newer leaves, but as they age they become darker, so the patterning disappears. some physical damage to some of the oldest leaves, so that was obviously there when I got it. Yeah, that one's doing fine. That's Paphiopedilum Blackjack. That was a spur of the moment purchase at Burnham's. They had quite a lot of them there. I had a look through and chose what I thought was the better one, or one of the better ones. And it was one of those, when I visit Burnham's, I can't come out empty-handed. And I thought, oh, let's try a Paph. And having had pretty good success with this one, I thought, well, let's try a few more then. So that's why the shelf's now got that many on. I'm not going out hunting down Paphiopedilums to fill up other shelves, but as and when I come across one that I quite like, we may add to the Paphiopedilums. I've got no problem bringing more in now that I know the ones I've got aren't doing bad, and in this case doing very well. So yeah, that's my Paphiopedilums, and let's get me back on. It's all about me, you know, blow the plants. So they say. Right. Yes, so that's a look at my Paphiopedilums. That's today's video done. And one change, which is the one with the pale leaves, is going to go in much heavier shade. I don't know whether it's a light issue, whether it's just one that prefers much heavier shade. I don't know that, but it's been in brighter light and has not changed. So let's try it in duller light and see if it greens up a little bit, or at least maintains the reasonable colour on the latest little new growths coming on. So that's that. To say, tomorrow, I may or may not film tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to do. My ECG appointment is at lunchtime, so I've got all morning. But what I do with that morning, I don't know. I might just sit and look out the window and worry. I might actually get something done to take my mind off of things. We shall see. Unknown. I just don't know. But yeah, we shall see. Mojo, I wish you wouldn't just randomly eat plants out there. He's currently chewing whatever's hanging out the side of the pots with the cuckoo flower in. He's we may have a problem with Mojo. He is 20 after all, but he's off his food and has been for probably nearly 2 weeks now. He was, if I'd said he had 3 portions of food over a day, he's now down to less than 2. This morning I put his breakfast out and he only had half of a pack instead of a whole one, and he hasn't finished it. So you know, this may be his decline. He'll fade away, but he's had a good go. We shall see. Might be just off colour, but he is old. He's still mobile, still very vocal. But yeah, he is getting on a bit, and he is slowing a little bit as well. But if he starts losing weight dramatically, then yeah, perhaps he won't be around too much longer. But everything has an end, you know. You coming in? Come on then, Chirpy. Anyway, as I said, what I'm up to for the rest of the week, it comes and goes, and we shall see. But what there will be is a video tomorrow afternoon with the results and advice given at my ECG appointment, and depending on that, what I propose to do as a consequence. That will be an update tomorrow afternoon, probably. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Now what are you doing? You've just come in. I got a feeling he might have a bit of cat dementia. There is such a thing, believe it or not, where he sort of forgets what he's doing, or forgets where he is. You know, he gets jumps down off the bed and sits at the top of the stairs looking round as if to say, what was I going to do? You know? Now he's gone back in again. He just, I don't know. He's probably waiting. Oh, he's got up on the laptop table, so he's waiting for me to go and sit down so that he can have a fuss, which is what I'm going to do next. So see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.